That was a great panel, wasn't it? Well, guess what? It is time for another great panel. And the next panel will focus on leveraging federal programs to improve access to capital for small businesses, to include 8A, SDB, WOSB, EDWOSB, HUBZones located in underserved and under-resourced areas. Now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce the moderator for this great panel. She is a consummate academic who began her career as a teacher, both at the university and high school levels. She possesses extensive experience in business development within government, contracting, marketing and branding, relationship building, and partnership management. Her impact is best recognized in her abilities to generate business opportunities within several industries through networking, developing partnerships, and understanding how to effectively create reciprocal referral relationships. She hails from the Sunshine State, the city beautiful, that is. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to bring to this virtual stage the Director of Business Development and Marketing for Parabolas, Teresa Moon.
TD, that was the most amazing introduction I've ever had in my life. I feel like I'm running out onto the basketball court and I need some high fives now. That was amazing. Thank you so much. That was amazing. And I love the fact that Edward's representing me right now too as Teresa Moon 2 times. So I appreciate it 1,000,000%. Thank you so much for wonderful introduction. I'm proud to be here. Special thank you to Lisa Jenkins from the U.S. Department of Treasury for having me here today to lead this panelist of wonderful, wonderful speakers and lead an impactful conversation for this event. Our group's going to be discussing leveraging federal programs to improve access to capital for small businesses, which is super important and near and dear to my heart. I know that the rest of the panel can say the same. I am going to follow Ms. Waterman's lead, and I'm going to ask each of the panelists to speak briefly about your background and how you work with your respective companies and how that's impactful to small and disadvantaged businesses that we're here to discuss. So today I'm joined with Edward Spenceley of Bank of America, Chris Pilkerton of Axion Opportunity Fund, Joyce Cristiano and Michelle Faison Oldham of T-Mobile. Good morning to each of you and welcome.
Morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
It's great to be here.
Awesome. I'm so excited for this chat, and I'm glad that you all were able to attend because I know how busy everyone is. So I'm going to kick it off to the ladies from T-Mobile and have you guys speak specifically. I'll start with you, Ms. Cristiano. If you could speak specifically about your background, your passion behind assisting small and disadvantaged businesses, and some of the initiatives that you specifically work on through T-Mobile and your work with T-Mobile that support this sector of our business.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Lisa and the U.S. Black Chamber for this opportunity. Again, my name is Joyce Cristiano. I'm with T-Mobile Supplier Diversity Team. I'm located in Kansas City, Missouri, and I'm proud to say that I am a board member of the local Heartland Black Chamber. My role at T-Mobile specifically aligns with this session today. My role is to support the growth of small businesses through contract opportunities with T-Mobile. Currently, I'm leading a diversity program called the Next Tech program. T-Mobile is funding the training, certification, and job placement of women and men of color to become network technicians or network equipment drivers. This is a universal program that anyone can join to extend their diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives with their companies. The programs, the network technician and the network driver programs are managed by 2 small, diverse-owned companies. And we're proud to say that we are growing their minority-owned business. Lastly, I always recommend to all size businesses, once you achieve success, remember to always send the elevator back down and support a less fortunate business owner. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Joyce. Teresa, I'll jump in here. I'm Michelle Faison-Oldham, the National Director here at T-Mobile for the Federal Civilian segment. And I am responsible for growing the segment. So think of it as a startup within a large business. And it's definitely something that I'm very passionate about as a former small business owner myself. I wanted to just share really quick, what we're doing here at T-Mobile. I don't know how many folks are familiar, but T-Mobile was really the smallest carrier. We think of ourselves as an uncarrier, and I'll explain that in just a second. But we are, very familiar with entrepreneurship. Many of the people that work here, including myself, are former small business owners or have currently have their own small business, as well as working to grow business here at T-Mobile. But just to share our story as a company, again, we were considered the fourth carrier many years ago, up until 2011. Not sure how many folks are familiar when AT&T made a bid to acquire T-Mobile. And that did not happen. That did not go through. It did not clear the DOJ. But there was a silver lining in that. And what the silver lining is that there was a $4 billion break fee that AT&T was required to pay T-Mobile. And as you can imagine, having a small business, that was a huge cash infusion. And that was really the catalyst that really helped us build out our network here at T-Mobile and really started to put the wheels in motion to bring us to the number 2 position, which is where we are today. The second catalyst for that was our acquisition of Sprint. And I know we talked about mergers and acquisitions earlier. That happened just 2 years ago, and we picked up quite a bit of spectrum, really what is considered the sweet spot of 5G with our 2.5 gigahertz spectrum that we acquired from Sprint. So that is our growth story here at T-Mobile. As I said, many entrepreneurs work here, and we are working diligently to continue to grow. And as Joyce mentioned, we want to make sure that we're sending the elevator back down to help small businesses grow. We're doing a lot in that area. You'll hear more about this, but just a couple of highlights. We have many different initiatives. We spent over $3 billion with diverse businesses and diverse suppliers to help us achieve our growth goals. 50% of our board of directors are women, as well as underrepresented minorities and members of the board. So that's one thing that we're proud of. We also are focusing diligently on veterans as well, especially working in the federal space. I think that's really noteworthy and worth mentioning. We are focusing on hiring 10,000 veterans and by 2025, and we're about halfway through that initiative currently. So we're doing a ton of, to help with small businesses, women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses. And then we also just recently forged a partnership with the U.S. Department of Commerce's Minority Business Development Agency. And we are working diligently with them to help highlight their Minority Business Enterprise Day. We are partnering them with our Magenta Edge program, which you'll hear more about here shortly. And what that is our version of helping small businesses by giving them access to educational seminars, to access to capital webinars, really giving them the toolbox of what they need to help them continue to grow their business. So many different things that we're doing here at T-Mobile. We're very passionate about it, and we couldn't be more thrilled to be here today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that introduction. Hey, Chris, I'm going to throw it over to you. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, your background, and tell us a little bit about Axion as well, please.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Teresa. And thanks to Treasury and the U.S. Black Chamber for having us today. It really is a fantastic event. So in 2017, I was appointed General Counsel at the U.S. Small Business Administration. So I had a chance to see Michelle and some of the others in the prior panel So it's great to see old friends. The SBA is truly, a bipartisan organization, as everyone knows, that really tries to advance small business opportunity, workforce opportunity, opportunities for underserved communities. In 2019, I had the chance and the honor to step in as the acting administrator or the head of the organization for about a year when Linda McMahon stepped down. So I held that cabinet position until the confirmation of Jovita Carranza in January. Now, during my time at SBA, really had the chance, as Michelle was just talking about with some of T-Mobile's initiatives, to work really closely on veterans programs, women's programs, 8A, the SBIC, and it really was just a tremendous experience all the way around to see not just the access to capital, but the technical assistance and the opportunity to really travel the country and take advantage of all the programs. And I think regardless of the administration that's in office, every administrator's struggle is to make sure that SBA is no longer the best kept secret in the government. And so events like these really are transformative and fantastic. And so I'm glad so many folks are attending today. So in March of 2020, the White House asked me to come over to lead something called the Opportunity Now program, which is essentially a way to pull the federal programs into some of the state programs, local programs, and have things work as efficiently as possible. But as we all recall, in March of 2020, the pandemic began, and the White House and the SBA and the Treasury Department really focused on the Paycheck Protection Program. So I spent a lot of my time focused on that. And as part of that, with senior executives at the banks and working with a lot of folks within the CDFI community. And the CDFI community, Community Development Financial Institutions, obviously had Jody on the prior panel, who's the expert in this, really was what I like to call the first responders to the needs of economic needs of underserved communities during the pandemic. And they just did a tremendous job. That the program has been around since the mid 1990s. And as Jody was talking about, each CDFI begins with sort of a grant from the government, but they build out their resources as well. So that includes that includes, bank debt and credit lines. But the philanthropy and the corporate sponsorship and engagement has been really tremendous over the last few years. And so when I left government, I really wanted to be able to kind of continue that work. And I came to Axion Opportunity Fund, which has been around for about 25 years, based in California and lending in about 46 different states. And we are the largest nonprofit CDFI focused on small business lending. So we just do small business lending. That having been said, the CDFI program has a lot of different components. There's housing components to it. And as Joni said, they are located anywhere and everywhere. They're urban, they're rural, they're cities. And really, there's about 1,300 of them, and they manage over $200 billion in capital across the country. And they're very collaborative, and they work very closely with the large banks, in part through the Community Reinvestment Act program. And so at AOF, like I said, we focus on small business. We do participate in something called the New Market Tax Credit Program as well, which involves tax credits to advance community and social activities like shelters and health clinics and things of that nature. But we've really seen access to capital being the huge issue over the pandemic. And we have equipment loans. We've seen a huge uptick, for example, in our trucking portfolio. Obviously, folks were home during the pandemic and they needed stuff delivered. So it was really a great chance for independent operators to start their small business. But it doesn't end there. There's a key part of small business development that I think a lot of folks forget, and that's the technical assistance piece, right? And the key is you got to meet folks where they are. Not everyone is starting a business. Folks maybe are taking over a business from their family, or they've had it for a few years and they're looking to grow. They're looking to open up other locations. And we provide that too in partnership with a number of groups like we work with FedEx, we work with American Express, we work with the Boston Brewing Company, just to name a few. And the great thing about the CDFI community, as I mentioned, it's very collaborative with the private sector. And we've seen some programs develop that I think it's really important for folks to know about, because kind of like the SBA, a lot of them are underutilized. So there was something called the California Rebuilding Fund, where you had really low interest loans out there. And that was in California specific. But that model has been adopted in other states and other regions. So there's one in New York, and there's also one in the southern states. It's about 15 different states. And I want to make sure folks are aware of this, because there's multiple CDFIs that are involved. And it's called the SOAR Fund. So the Southern Opportunity and Resilience Fund. And it's 15 different states, Texas, all the way up into Delaware. And these loans are at 4%. So right now, obviously, we're seeing rise in inflation rates. And there really is just these fixed rate loans are things that can really be affordable to small businesses. And the thing about CDFIs as well is they're a little different, right? Their goal is to get capital into these underserved communities. And so they certainly look at, traditional financial metrics, but they're also looking at the 4 C's: credit, collateral, character, and cash flow. So we're looking at ways to make these loans. Obviously, banks do their best to do that, but they've got certain credit boxes and things they have to work in. As nonprofit organizations, for the most part, we're there to try to get money into the hands of folks. And I did mention that the coaching piece of it at AOF and AOFund.org, it's all free. Not the money you got to pay back, but the technical assistance is all free for the most part. So what we're really trying to do is help folks kind of grow where they are. And like I said, there's a lot of CDFIs out there. I believe the number is around 1,300. We're certainly not the only one. There are places where you can find CDFIs. You can go to the Opportunity Finance Network CDFI locator or the Treasury, certainly get referrals from SBA or SBDCs. But like I said, we've been around for about 25 years. We focus just on small business and really have developed some tremendous relationships across the private sector and then also in Congress. Because one thing that I always tell people is CDFIs were so impactful during the pandemic. It's time for CDFIs to truly have a seat at the financial services table. So we have an advocacy arm, and that's part of what we're trying to accomplish to ensure that, when you're looking at banks, you're looking at private equity, CDFIs did yeoman's work during the pandemic, and they should have the opportunity to continue to do so post-pandemic. So that's my piece.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. And talk about perfect timing, Edward. I know that you've just joined us. Nothing like welcome to live TV. We had some technical difficulties, but not to worry. I see that you've just been able to join us again. Edward, if you wouldn't mind, introduce yourself. I'm sure there are a lot of people joining us right now who know you, unless they've been, living under a rock for the last 30 years. But if you wouldn't mind, introduce yourself and talk to us about the initiatives that Bank of America does to assist small and disadvantaged businesses.
Sure. Thank you, Teresa. I can tell by the introductions today that it must be an election year or an election cycle, because everybody's talking about how great we are. But I appreciate that. I want to thank the people that spoke before me. I'll talk a lot to those things. But I've been with the bank 22 years. I actually run the government contracting group for Bank of America for privately owned companies. All of our small business set-asides, right? Not the large publicly traded prime contractors. So, and that includes, of course, woman-owned, African-American-owned, Hispanic-owned, A-Day, anybody who falls into an SBA designation. From our perspective in the government contracting space, we are focused on veteran-owned small businesses, African-American-owned, Hispanic-owned, and women-owned, and the other programs, of course, falling under an 8A or a HUBZone set aside. Of course, we work with those as well, but we always see, bleed over for those companies, right? And as my friend from T-Mobile was talking before, we same sort of initiatives. We went out and we I think we're right now at 14,000 veteran employees. We started with the same goal of 10,000 and reached that a couple of years ago, and just continue to grow that. And then we support those veteran families through spouse employment. So if, we've got several people in the bank who, like me, spent a long time in the military, and the spouse was working for the bank, and ensured that they had their career continue every time I deployed somewhere else or got moved to another position. So that's always been a great thing. But specifically, about a year and a half ago, we pledged about $1.25 billion to the racial equality and economic perspective. And, as my friend just from the CDFI just spoke, he's actually, I think we're one of the largest contributors to CDFI funding. And just for an example, 3 years ago, I had the opportunity to do a $20 million fund through several CDFIs for veteran startup businesses. They did not have to be in the government contracting space. And we totally funded that $20 million, and those companies are all still performing very well today when I talk to my CDFI friends. And that's that sort of seed money, right? That push to move those people across the line and continue to grow their business. We do about $2.5 billion from a vendor program that is all to diverse vendors, right? So those are African American owned, Hispanic owned, woman owned, Asian American owned, several different categories. We have about 50,000 plus women entrepreneurs, and 90% of those in that program identify as women of color, are enrolled in the Bank of America Institute for Women's Entrepreneurship at Cornell. So we are trying to really touch all aspects of the personal life, from a housing perspective for those communities, from an educational perspective for those communities, from a small business perspective, because we understand that small business impacts not just the business owner and not just the owners of the business, but the employees as well, right? So delivering financial education to those employees, financial benefits to those companies that we support from a banking perspective. We added, I think it was $10 million grant to support the Center for Black Entrepreneurship. And that's in partnership with, two great universities, Spelman and Morehouse College. So we are really, and it's not just about, and I'll say this very carefully, it's not just about the money. Sometimes it's easy just to write the check and send it in, but we put foot soldiers on the ground. We have bankers every day across our enterprise that are going into these communities and speaking from an education standpoint, financial acumen standpoint, teaching everything from creating P&Ls and balance sheets. Personally on my side in the government contracting space, where we cover 1,000 government contractors who are small businesses, I spend most of my time strategizing and advising on how to sustainably grow your business to get to the point where you create an enterprise value that, if the plan is, hey, I want to build this thing and in 10 years I want to sell it, what are the things we need to do each and every day for your company to get you to that point so that, you see that dream come true? Or if you want to pass it on to your family members, or if you want to, through a merger and acquisition, purchase something else. And all the subjects I think that we talked about today, we leverage as a preferred lender for SBA, the 7A program that you heard about today, the 504 program. Our clients are using all the tools. And then specifically, we have a commitment to the less served communities within our country, right, within our borders of, the minority communities, in the support from not only social, ESG, governance, social responsibility, and environmental responsibility, but also from a, let's walk side by side. This is how we get from A to B. And again, we have a board that's completely diverse. I think we have more women in senior leadership roles than probably, I don't want to say any, but most of our publicly traded companies in the country. And that's a continued focus, and it has to be purposeful and meaningful. And again, it hasn't have to do with writing the checks, but deploying the people who are passionate about it, caring about it, and are willing to do the hard work, the heavy lifting, right? And that's what I'm hearing from everybody here today on this call. And that's where we want to work in conjunction with, the Treasury Department, with the others that I work with. I work with almost every other agency in the federal government, as you can imagine, because we have contractors at all those federal agencies. So Teresa, I'm going to stop there because, I got lucky enough to get back on the phone and my computer's still not working. So.
Oh man, well, we got lucky too. We're glad that you're here, and we'll definitely be getting back to you because we already got some questions that are coming through that I know that I'm going to need you to address. And I think the beauty of this panel and the people that are on it is the diversity within it, because our speakers from T-Mobile are going to be able to address one side of the access to capital issue in terms of training and educating these business groups to being successful as entrepreneurs and not only attaining, but fulfilling contract opportunities, whether in the commercial or government sector. So I'd like to allow you ladies to lead us off, chat about the initiatives that T-Mobile has. I know, Ms. Cristiano, you've got the Magenta Edge initiative that you were going to speak to us about, and then I'll allow you to pass it to your colleague to speak more specifically about some of the federal side of initiatives that T-Mobile is doing to help prep these businesses to be ready for success.
Thank you, Teresa, and everyone today. Welcome to the panel. Again, T-Mobile's Magenta Edge program began in 2021 to support small businesses in getting ahead. The Magenta Edge program serves as a hub of original content of information for small businesses to navigate ups and downs of entrepreneurship. There are digital workshops that are accessible at t-mobile.com/magenta-edge. I will say that again. Digital workshops to support small-owned businesses are accessible at t-mobile.com/magenta-edge, where small businesses receive advice and best practices on a variety of topics led by industry experts. Popular workshops that have been included on the website are Save Money by Building Your Own Website, The Blueprint to Building Business Credit, and a Small Business Guide to Accessing Resources. The Magenta Hub focuses on 8 main topics. Those 8 topics are marketing and communications, business operations, business credit, profit and scalability and growth, business taxes, access and resources, generational longevity, and navigating barriers. On September 1, registration will open for all small businesses at no charge to participate in a live digital workshops led by industry experts. The registration will lead to 2 different events. One will be held on 15th and one will be held on September 22nd. The September 15th workshop, titled Accelerating Businesses Leap into the Future, Setting into the Metaverse, will introduce small business to the metaverse and provide tips regarding how to explore business opportunities within the metaverse. The September 22nd workshop, Engage Your Audience Creativity with Instagram, will support small businesses with ways to improve marketing and performance from a big Instagram presence. Again, the Magenta Edge program is free of charge to small business owners. Small businesses can log on at the scheduled live or digital workshops. The on-demand digital workshops are accessible at the owner's lead. The website also features small businesses sharing their stories regarding overcoming COVID challenges. One other program that Michelle mentioned was the MBDA program, where T-Mobile has a partnership with the Minority Business Development Agency. That partnership started earlier this year, and we're promoting the Buy Minority Business Enterprise Day, which will occur on September the 24th. T-Mobile has partnered with a social media campaign to educate business owners regarding MBDA resources and how to take advantage of the resources. The campaign will engage with MBDA for supporting with securing capital, compete for a contract, and to identify strategic partners who could lead minority businesses to become export ready. Also, that campaign would also share upcoming MBDA funding and grant opportunities, as well as tips and best practices for writing a small business grant application. Any small business owner can learn more about the Buy MBE Day and access free educational content and resources at the T-Mobile website. However, the September 24th Buy Minority Business Day is specifically for minority-owned businesses. The Buy Minority Business Enterprise Day will be held every September, generally the fourth Saturday of every month. Anyone interested in more information regarding securing capital, funding, or grant programs can visit M as in Mary, B as in boy, D as in David, A as in apple.gov. I hope this information I've shared with you today was educational. If you need any support in learning these programs, you can contact me at joyce.cristiano@t-mobile.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Michelle, I'm going to pass it to you now so you can discuss further the initiatives that your team is putting forth.
Yes, sure. Well, and a lot of it is similar to what Joyce had stated. So our partnership with the U.S. Department of Commerce and MBDA, as she just mentioned, with the workshops coming up, have been amazing. The one thing I want to just expand and build on there is Buy MBE Day, which is happening September 24th. We are making a conscious effort to promote that. If you think of American Express and SBA and their partnership, a few years back, that is what we're trying to put together here at T-Mobile through this partnership. So you'll see a lot of promotion happening in social media and other places around Buy MBE Day. Obviously, it's very significant to us and really to everyone. So mark your calendars for 9/24 because we want to make sure that everybody is aware of that. And then just to expand even further, outside of the Department of Commerce, we really are working a lot with our hometown efforts on expanding coverage in tribal areas. It's something that not a lot of folks talk about, but it's very, very important. I mean, if you think about rural areas that don't have access to internet, you can't look for a job, you can't conduct business, you can't go to school. It really sets a lot of rural areas back. So we are solely focused in the federal space, not just on the 575 or 74 federally recognized tribes, but all tribal areas across the country and providing coverage. And again, a lot of those are in rural areas where it is hard to put coverage, right? If you think about our national parks across the country, it's not an easy feat, but we're building out to the tune of 1,000 towers per month, which is pretty aggressive. And it really is to, again, further all of those things: education, just access to, you talk about access to capital, but just having access to information and being able to conduct business. We also are focused heavily, as Bank of America mentioned as well, on education. It's very important. Project 10 million is a huge project for us. We've invested about $10 billion to really make sure, not just during the pandemic where students needed access to hotspots and different devices in order to be able to, go to school virtually. But we also want to make sure that that continues to go even after the pandemic. So we're investing a lot of money in our Project 10 Million efforts, and you can find a lot of that information if you just Google Project 10 Million. Veterans, we talked about earlier. We have a huge veteran initiative here. One event that I'd like to highlight that's coming up is the Veterans Day Parade in New York City, and we're always a huge sponsor of that. So anyone who's located in that area, or you'll be in the New York City area around the holidays, the Veterans Day Parade is something that we're super proud of, and we make a big deal out of that every year. We're also members of the board for USO, which is near and dear to our heart, in addition to, our other veterans efforts. So those are just some of the things that we're focused on in the federal space. Obviously, working with Treasury, we know that they have a mentor Protege program, and that is something that we have discussed recently, and we're in process on that too. So more to come from us at T-Mobile. We truly believe that it's not just about, profitability, although everybody knows it takes that to run a business, but it's purpose driven. And that's really what's important. And so I think, just highlighting that here today, I think that's very important. So.
Thank you so much. I agree. Our CEO always says that we can all do well if first we start by doing good. And I think everyone here shares that. That's exactly right. Thank you, Teresa. Of course. Yeah. So great. We've got some questions that are already rolling in. So I'm going to start putting them out so you guys can speak directly to the guests. So the first one's going to go to my friend, Edward. This question is, my company specializes in marketing and promotions and is interested in contracting with the federal government. I'd like to become certified and need a line of credit to hire and have on hand. What steps would I need to take to get started? So Edward, that's to you. Uh-oh. We might be having technical difficulties again. And I do have another question though, so I'll move on. Edward, we'll get back to that. This one is for Chris. Does Axion provide a line of credit or low APR business credit to business owners with low credit in New York City? And if so, can you give us some actionable steps that we can take to be in a position to get approved?
Absolutely. So we do lend in 46 different states, which includes New York. So for more information about how to get approved, go to www.aofund.org. You can do it all online and learn more about the services there. Like I said, it's in 46 different states, and certainly very interested in working with folks. As I mentioned before, each CDFI has target communities that they focus on. We're very focused on underserved communities, particularly communities of color. So we certainly welcome folks to come, apply, and engage with us and see if we can make something happen for you. Teresa, I do have to say, having been in the government and having seen just the impact of the private sector, kudos to Joyce and Michelle and to T-Mobile. The programs that they were talking about, it's fantastic. I've seen the Small Business Day work so well with the SBA and American Express, and I'm so glad that you all are focusing on that. And I should also say to Ed that I've had so many wonderful conversations with Bank of America, and they've been tremendous supporters of the CDFI program as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We do have a question for you ladies for T-Mobile. Obviously, a lot of excitement about the events that are coming up for you, and people are already looking at the website to find out about it. So we've been asked if you can share the link for the Metaverse workshop. that they weren't sure where to find it. They were looking at the Magenta Edge site and don't see it. So if you wouldn't mind, speak to that, please.
Okay, that's a t-mobile.com/buy, BUY, MBEDAY. So that's t-mobile.com/buy, MBEDAY.
Excellent. Back to thankfully I have a background in some of the questions that are being asked of Edward, and I think I can speak to it a bit. And then the panel beforehand, it's about knowing what is available to you through each stage of growth, especially for a federal contractor. So it is difficult sometimes if you haven't had a hold in the industry to just run out and get a line of credit at your bank. However, there are lots of other funding options. SBA provides options. Bank of America has some great programs. Edward, I'm not sure if you're able to hop back in with us to discuss a little bit further about some of the programs that are offered through Bank of America with regard to access to 7A loans or the 504 loan program. If you're able to, Ed, if you can jump in on that. I think he's still having technical difficulties. No problem. So I think having your timeline in terms of where you are and your growth for a federal contractor will be able to align you with what's going to be available to you. So some of the government programs for access to loans are able to be accessed by some of the small businesses that haven't been endeavored into that environment for too long. So there are going to be requirements based off of level of contract acceptance or contract acquisition. So how many have you won, right? How much revenue have you brought in from those? I think the bank, of course, is, as Edward always says, the bankers are the most heavily regulated people in the room. So there are some things that you're going to have to provide to the bank in order to have access to some of the programs that they have. There are other lending options in terms of the CDFI programs and the SBA loans that you can have access to prior to that. So I'd say, Edward always says this as well, and you can tell that I'm a big fan. He's one of my mentors, is to get in touch with people who can give you cash early and often. All of your partners, especially as a federal contractor, should know where you are at all times so that they know how to be a better partner to you. Edward is one of those people that's willing to chat with you no matter what stage you're in. So whether or not he's right now, he definitely knows someone who can put you in touch, who to put you in touch with so that you have an access to it. He and I partner together frequently on things like that as well. So I think he's put his contact information in the chat box so you can reach out to him, because there was another business in his area down here in the Sunshine State in Tampa that was interested in chatting with him about some loan opportunities. And we'll make sure that Edward gets that information. If you want to reach out to the host of this event, we'll make sure that we can get you in touch with Edward, no problem. Let's see. Okay, so I'd like to put it back to the panelists. If you have any last minute tips or advice to share before we move on to the next panel, I'd love to hear from you on that. So ladies, if you wouldn't mind leading us off.
Joyce, I'll take that one. Well, so of course, as we talked about before, I did put a couple of links in the chat here because I know there's questions around when the workshops are. So I'm hoping that's getting to everyone. So that would be my number one answer. Obviously, attend some of our workshops. It's completely free. There is no, fee for signing up for all of this additional information, education and tools. There's a marketing kit, I believe, that's included as well to help you understand how to market your business. So I would say definitely take advantage of, all of the tools, especially if they're provided at no cost. And secondly, don't give up. I think it sounds probably cliche, but it is really, something that I think about quite a bit. We talk a lot about too at T-Mobile, the Flywheel Concept, right? And I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with that. That came from Jeff Bezos and his 14 letters to shareholders. And they talked about Amazon in the early days. Many of you will remember, he was buying tons of warehouse space, and people would say, when is this going to pay off? Like, when is this company going to break even? I mean, how much further can he go? And it was really like a slingshot effect, right? No one can touch Amazon to this day. They make it super easy. And, they're definitely ahead of the pack. So it all goes back to never giving up, persistence, hard work. It pays off. And I'm a huge believer in that. And that is one thing that we live by here at T-Mobile. We always move forward, and we say that quite a bit, right? With we won't stop. So never stop and never give up on pursuing your dreams. It's very important. So I would leave you with that.
Thank you, Michelle. And Chris, I'm going to throw it over to you.
Thanks, Teresa. So I'm going to wear my old SBA hat for a second, talking about the contracting. But a lot of small businesses, when I would talk to them, would say, why should I even try to get a federal contract? Isn't just the big companies that get them, that it's required that 23% of all federal contracts go to small businesses. And there are people watching. There are people at the SBA watching. There are people in Congress watching. So please apply for them. You can get the required registrations through SBA. You can get that support through SBDCs and other great nonprofits. So I want to make sure folks are supported there, because I agree with everything that Michelle said, that small businesses truly are the engine of our country's economy. And as part of that engine, CDFIs have really helped to continue to fuel it. And I really want to stress that there is capital out there. I mentioned that the SOAR program really still has capital left. It's at 4%, and you can access it through our website at aofund.org. And once again, the other piece I will say, as I mentioned, is that counseling and that coaching, wherever you are in your business, please access it. It's free, because that's the mission. And I think the CDFI community has really risen to the occasion, but it certainly didn't do it alone. It did it with wonderful private sector partners. And it is that partnership, that sort of group think about moving the country forward. So I'm just so appreciative of having been here today. And the other panelists, and Teresa, of course, you for moderating all this. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we appreciate all of your insight and input for this great conversation. Access to capital is the number one need of all businesses of all sizes. So there's no shame in that game, and reaching out to the proper partners to get information on that. So I think we're going to go ahead and pass it on back to the host of this. And thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. What an amazing panel, right? Part of the discussion was to be purpose-driven. I know that was another great comment and a golden nugget that came out of this from Teresa, is that we all want to do good. So we want to follow that thread at the U.S. Department of the Treasury, right? We want to ensure that we maximize opportunities where practical for small businesses by virtue of the Small Business Act of 1954, right? And about the why, Mr. Chris Perkleton, he talks about the why you need to say yes to attend events like this, right? Part of that conversation is the saying yes means that Treasury is bringing in new entrants into our landscape. We are considering small businesses, right? Because of events such as these, a small business that participated was able to secure a $2.3 million contract. And they were a first time ever small business in Treasury's landscape. So we're excited, and we want to make sure that we continue delivering on the why. Now we'll move on to event 3. With event 3, we have Miss Tamara Murray. We're excited to have Tamara join us today. She is the Underwriting and Marketing Specialist for the U.S. Small Business Administration Surety Guarantee Program. Tamara began her career in the surety industry in 1990 as the bond manager for a small bonding agency in Fort Worth, Texas, before moving to Denver, Colorado, to become a contract bond underwriter. Tamara joined the SBA in 2007, and she is responsible for the marketing and outreach to the surety industry and small business community, working closely with bond agents and surety companies who provide over $7 billion a year in bond guarantees to small businesses. Without further ado, I would like to bring up Ms. Tamara. Tamara?
Thank you, Melissa. It's such a pleasure to be here today. Welcome, everyone. You know, I caught a lot of the panels, the presenters that have come before me, and it's such an honor to be part of a great group of professionals that all of the information that y'all have been getting